Hello, and welcome all you cosmic-powered paper people to the Cartoonist Co-op Comics Mixtape, where indie comics are coming at you at 186 miles a second, in 4 colors and 4 dimensions. This podcast is a creator-driven celebration of the medium of comics and the community that makes and supports it. It's comics that you can hear. This is going to be kind of a Frankenstein's monster of a podcast made up of all different types of different segments and presentation. In this first episode, we're going to have news updates about what's going on in the world of comics, recommendations for comics of and by our members, discussions about the creative process, and a dramatic comics reading, because hey, how else are you going to do comics when all you have is audio? In keeping with this ramshackle collective spirit, this podcast is going to feature many different voices, and in a sense, the whole co-op is going to be participating. We're going to be meeting some other people as we go, but first, let's meet some of today's hosts right here in our imaginary studio, which, since it's imaginary, we can say it's a lavish Art Deco space filled with signed photographs of all the greatest comic creators ever worked in radio. So, let's meet the people behind the voices you're hearing. Starting off, I'm your host, Yuki Clark, she, her pronouns, and I'm a longtime Cartoonist Co-op member and chair of our outreach committee. I'm the creator of Rita and Josie, my sapphic sci-fi adventure project, starring 2 childhood best friends, exploring the mysteries of inhabited Mars and how their past intertwines with this planet. As well as from June 6th to the 8th, I'll be representing the co-op alongside many other members at Toronto Comics Art Festival, and I'll also be on a panel for its professional development event, Word Balloon Academy.
Hi, I'm Kelsey D. Crawford, they, them. I've been drawing comics, specifically webcomics, since 2013. Right now, I'm currently working on the webcomic The Legend of Jamie Roberts, and I did the current news segment.
I'm Adam Prosser. I've been with the co-op for a couple of years now. You might have heard my mellifluous voice if you listen to the audio version of the Cartoonist Co-op Community Board newsletter. And I also host my own podcasts, What Mad Universe with Philip Rice, and the Star Trek Mirror Universe podcast with Douglas MacDonald Norman and Dylan Roth. My current comics project is Star Force Pinnacle, a magical space opera that just might save the planet Earth. And I'm also the editor of the Strange Romance Comics Anthology. And I will be at the co-op's table at the Toronto Comics Arts Festival, June 7th and 8th.
I'm Jeff Martin, he, him. I'm the author of the graphic novel series Hockeypocalypse, as well as the webcomic Hell Inc. and many, many other comics. I'm here to bring you the Cartoonist Co-op Comics Quiz.
Hello, I'm Iris J., and my pronouns are she or zer. I've been working in webcomics for 20 years on series such as Crossed Wires, Epiphany, The Scandalous Sybil Throat, and Split Check with my partner Nero Villagayos O'Reilly. On this show, I'm doing an interview segment called Light Bulbs. You can hear its first installment with our special guest Memo in just a bit.
And now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting off with the news.
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I'm here to present Comics Current with Kelsey D. Crawford. In this news segment, I'm going to give an overview of the Diamond Distributors story that's been developing over the last quarter. Plus, I'll share some news regarding book bans, do shoutouts of upcoming events, and let you know of any events accepting applications. Apologies to my international listeners, as this news segment is 99.9% USA-centric. The hope is for future episodes to include more international news. First, Diamond Distributors. On January 14th, Diamond declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. JP Morgan Chase provided Diamond with $41 million in debtor-in-possession financing to meet its obligations during proceedings. Universal Distribution submits a letter of intent to acquire Diamond UK, while Diamond the US pursued offers for other business units. Alliance expressed interest in Diamond because Diamond told Alliance, "We have a deal with Wizards of the Coast," so Alliance moves to buy Diamond. Remember this, it will come back later. On April 8th, 7 days after the deadline to sell the business or close completely, Alliance files a lawsuit against Diamond, because Diamond backpedaled on the Alliance buyout, saying, "No, Universal Ad Populum and Sparkle Pop made good offers." This statement leaves out the fact that Sparkle Pop was incorporated less than 1 month prior as a quote-unquote affiliate of Ad Populum. April 28th, Matthew W. Cheney, the acting U.S. trustee for the region, files a motion to convert Diamond's bankruptcy from Chapter 11 to a Chapter 7 or even a dismissal. A Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is what Diamond is currently in, means that Diamond would need to reorganize to stay alive. A Chapter 7 would mean Diamond would have to liquidate and close. Cheney filed for Diamond to turn from Chapter 11 to Chapter 7 because Diamond has not been providing monthly operating reports. Without these reports, the courts do not know how the company is performing since the January bankruptcy filing. So if Diamond wants to stay in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, it has to start filing monthly reports, which it has not done since January. On April 29th, it's revealed Diamond told Alliance about the Wizards of the Coast deal they had, but in fact the partnership had ended months before the bankruptcy hearings. So Diamond sold Alliance on a partnership it no longer had, and knew this going into negotiations. Alliance then had negotiations separately with Wizards of the Coast, but Wizards of the Coast refused Alliance's offer. After that, Alliance terminated its agreement to buy Diamond and is now filing a second lawsuit seeking $8.5 million plus accrued interest and further damages. This story is still developing. In legal news, Texas Freedom to Read Project has successfully organized to elect more supporters of the Freedom to Read into local offices, but they could still use some support. Head to Texas Freedom to Read Project's website at www.txftrp.org for more information. It's the initials of Texas Freedom to Read Project. Florida's attempts to ban more books dies in committee thanks to the advocacy of groups like Florida's Freedom to Read Project and Authors Against Book Bans. Authors Against Book Bans is an authors advocacy group fighting against book bans. They are currently looking for more cartoonists and comic artists who have been traditionally published, and are also seeking those with experience in self-publishing. If this catches your interest, go to authorsagainstbookbans.com to find out more. In convention news, Toronto Comic Arts Festival is happening June 7th and 8th in Toronto, Canada. A2CAF, the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival, is happening the following weekend on June 14th and 15th in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Origins Game Fair is June 18th through 22nd in Columbus, Ohio. Cake, Chicago Alternative Comics Expo, is June 28th and 29th in, you guessed it, Chicago, Illinois. Massachusetts Indie Comic Expo, aka MICE, is accepting applications until June 6th. Head to micexpo.org/apply for more info. That's micexpo.org/apply for more info. Milwaukee Indie Local Comic Fest, aka MILK, is accepting applications until June 15th. Head to milkcomicfest.org for more information. I have also put together a spreadsheet of conventions happening in 2025. Most events in the spreadsheet are centered on the Midwest, but also includes DC and Phoenix, Arizona shows. This sheet is constantly updating. To see this sheet, head to tinyurl.com/MidwestCons. If you need to see more events outside of the Midwest, head to keepitweird.art. Go there, click the menu, and select the show list. It will give you a master list of zine fests, comics and small press shows, and art book fairs in the US and Canada. A spreadsheet version of the list is also available on the website. Again, that's keepitweird.art. Click the menu and select the show list. That's all for this news segment. Thank you so much for listening. And now, on to the rest of the podcast episode.
It's time for the Cartoonist Co-op Comics Quiz. It's time to test your knowledge of comics history and maybe learn a thing or two. Are you ready for the first question? Here we go! Will Eisner invented the term graphic novel to sell one of his comics to a book publisher. Which comic would go on to be referred to as the first graphic?
Reaching back into the pull list, the next item is Scam the Gods by Keith James. Scamthegods.com. When the sun fell asleep, the world was cast into darkness. But people still gotta make a buck. That's the reasoning of Sir Valdez, former actor, supposed valiant knight, and professional con artist. He makes money from his art, and the highest form of art, he believes, is the scam. After a run-in with an angry mob, he's saved by Esperanto, a mysterious man wrapped in bandages, who becomes his accomplice on this quest to scam the very gods themselves, though really they might just be out to scam each other. There's a page of Scam the Gods that made me laugh harder than just about any webcomic I've seen since Achewood. A man in a ridiculously tiny hat passes a sinister hooded figure in an alley. "Hey man," says the figure, "want some flarm?" He then opens a briefcase to reveal a bizarre little hairy critter with claws, labeled Flarm. "No thanks," says the man, at which point the hooded figure offers him Smarp, which is a tiny figure in a top hat and tails, and Jub, which is a white pyramid. The man hesitates for a panel, then says, "All right, give me the Smarp." That's a pretty good encapsulation of the sometimes hilarious, sometimes spooky, always surreal world of Scam the Gods. I just talked about Phantomarine, a fantasy comic with a meticulously created world with strong internal logic. Scam the Gods is not that. It's deliberately weird and seemingly nonsensical, often in a very silly way. The so-called post-slumber world is apocalyptic in a sense, but less bleak and more as if reality itself hiccuped, and people just went on with their business as well as they could. People self-medicate as well as they can, smoking nightworm in wriggle bars, set up carnival games called Wake the Sun, and collect artifacts from the time before the eternal eclipse. But there's a sense that everyone's taking pains to ignore how absurd and broken everything is. It's absolutely a post-pandemic comic. The sense of isolation is enhanced by James' minimalist backgrounds and use of white space. The comic is in black and white. When James does draw elaborate backgrounds, he still tends to emphasize long shots on wide, empty spaces like courtyards and flat wastelands. The two leads, Valdez and Esperanto, are seemingly growing closer together as they travel the land running scams, but each holds a sheaf of secrets and think they're exploiting the other in one way or another. The art reflects this sense of distance and detachment nicely. I'm making this comic sound like some kind of solemn art film, which would be a huge misrepresentation, in keeping with the spirit of the comic. As I mentioned, it's also hilarious, and also innovative in its storytelling. James' use of random pop-up captions is particularly clever, like one sequence where the captions feature unnecessary adjectives, and then the captions themselves sprout captions to reflect Valdez's flamboyant mood before he launches into a monologue. Scam the Gods is currently closing in on its 200th page and seems to be just getting started in terms of the larger narrative, though that doesn't seem to be the point so much as the fun standalone issues, or lies, as James calls them, with shorter filler stories being called fibs. It just might be the most towering achievement in webcomics ever accomplished. In fact, it just might be the greatest work of art ever created by the human race. If only everyone clicked on scamthegods.com, all the world's problems would be solved, and we would enter a new golden age. It's great. Trust me.
We're back with the Cartoonist Co-op Comics quiz and the answer to our first question. Which Will Eisner comic would be referred to as the first graphic novel? A Contract with God, published in 19...
What story turned on the lights in your head? Since its very inception, the medium of comics has been building on what came before. The classics and cult faves of yesterday inspired the cartoonists of today, whose comics will in turn inspire another wave of creators tomorrow. By exploring how we got here, we can better understand where we are and figure out where we're going next. You're listening to Lightbulbs, part of the Comics Co-op Mixtape. I'm your host, Iris J. You're listening to Lightbulbs, part of the Comics Co-op Mixtape. I am your host, Iris J. Today we're going to be talking about the comics that inspire us. Today I've got a very special guest on for our inaugural episode. Why don't you introduce yourself for the listeners?
Hi, I'm Memo. I am a comicer based out of Auckland, New Zealand, and I have my debut graphic novel, Dominion, coming out for New Zealand in May, for the rest of the world June, because shipping takes ages.
Very exciting. Definitely make sure to pick up a copy of Dominion when it drops in your corner of the world. I wanted to ask, first off, how long have you been making comics, Memo?
So I always loved comics ever since, gosh, I could read like the funnies in the newspaper. So when I was really little, I made like really dumb, like kind of comic, newspaper comic style comics.
Mm-hmm.
But in middle school, I got super into manga. And from there, I shifted into more page format and, kind of like light novel, where I would do these novel relays with my best friend, where we would draw small parts of it and then like write the rest.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was really fun. And after I went to uni, I did take a comics course, but my main degree was graphic design. So it kind of fell off for a bit. But then in 2020, I knew I wanted to make a comic. Like it was one of those like dreams of mine, but I just didn't know what I wanted to make or like what idea. Because I knew it had to be an idea that I was just like on fire about, because comics take so much energy and time.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 2020, I finally found that idea and
All
started making
right.
Dominion.
Cool. Awesome. Kind of a pandemic project that came to blossom, I assume?
Yeah. So here in New Zealand, we had it a bit easier than other places. So we had the 1 month lockdown, and then things were normal for about a year, but then we had the long lockdown in 2021.
Oh,
And during
wow.
the long lockdown was when I sat and I wrote the entire script for season 1, which is like the first 50 chapters of
Wow.
the series. And then I plotted all the rest of the series out as well. I just haven't written like the script.
That's incredible. And if you don't mind me asking, about how long is each chapter?
So it was originally planned for like webtoons, so I guess you could say about 60 panels. I started working in page format so it's a bit of a funny story how it started.
Mhm.
So I started working on the series. I knew I wanted to do it. I drew the prologue. But then Webtoon announced their call to action contest.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
like, oh, I'm just gonna jump a chapter and do the action scene and see how it goes. And so I learned a lot from that. Did not win the contest, obviously, but it was still really good learning, And so then I went back and like kind of restarted a bit.
Mhm.
And that's at that point. So it started publishing online 2023. So there's that bit of like, yeah, the bit was done first, went back, revisited it. And then after the call to action contest, I switched to page format. And that one I've done like based off of Weekly Shonen Jump. So between 14 to 16 pages.
Oh,
though
nice.
In the book, one is now 18 pages. It is a long chapter. It was funny how I like felt it when I was working on it. I was just like, oh my gosh, this chapter is so long. It's only 2 more than like the max, but like I was just like,
You really feel those extra pages.
yeah, you do. So yeah, so that's more my guide now. I go between 14 and 16 pages, and then if it's needed, like, because my biggest guide is where am I hitting on a plot point. I always want every chapter to teach you something or for you to learn something that's important. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want there to be a filler or to feel like nothing has happened. So, however many pages it takes to hit that point. So that's part of the reason why, like, for chapter 9, which is the one that's about 18 pages, for it to hit on that satisfying like end point, it needed the extra 2 pages. So
Nice. It sounds like you've really integrated sort of that manga influenced approach into your workflow, which is really cool because that's a useful segue to what we're going to be talking about on the show today. what comic title did you pick as your inspiration to talk about this episode?
Full Metal Alchemist.
Full Metal Alchemist.
Full Metal Alchemist.
Only the literal best series of all time. I'm not
Yeah.
biased.
By Hiromu Arakawa. First published in... Oh, I had the Wikipedia page up here, so I...
Weekly Shonen Ganon.
Thank you! Yes.
Yeah, I am a fangirl.
Oh my gosh.
I have the deep lore.
Yeah. When was the first time you encountered it?
So the way I found it was a bit of a roundabout way. So back one of the places I lived had like a grocery store that had, gosh, I think the name of the magazine was like Anime News, literally.
Oh, wow.
And I'd pick up the magazine, and they were doing a highlight on Studio Bones's version of Full Metal Alchemist Season 1 because it was just coming out at that time. Revealing my age.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's like, so I was in middle school, and I remember I was like, oh, this looks super cool. And so then we actually didn't get it broadcast to us, so I had to buy the DVDs of the anime. And
Oh my
I got, like,
gosh.
yeah, so I got the first set, like 1 and 2, and I like fell in love. But I had to wait till I could find more DVDs, and I was like, oh, well, this is based off of a manga. And the manga had also started to come out, so I started to pick up the manga. And when the manga issues ran out, I was like, I need more. And I found out about scanlations. And so every month, like on the day the Shonen Ganon came out, I would like rush home from school and get on my computer and go to my scanlation site to read like the latest chapter.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it was funny because I was able to read the manga before the anime did the second season. The first anime did the second season and went so like off script. And so
Yeah.
I just always have been this purist where I'm like, this is trash. The manga is better. But yeah, the funny part is I got so burned by the first anime that I'm just now watching Brotherhood because like I couldn't believe that it would actually be loyal to the manga how I think it should be. And it's a little bit funny because I still have quibbles because I feel like Arakawa sensei set up a lot of the mystery better, which I guess the second anime couldn't avoid some of the problem of that because the first anime had done the setup in the right order, but then you don't want to repeat the first anime and things. Like, it's still good, but like Arakawa did it best. My
Yeah.
unbiased opinion.
That's always the problem you run into with adapting a comic for television, it seems like, is that you only have so much time to compress things into, and like as good as Brotherhood is, like it's really has to exist in conversation with what came before it. It's really funny now because I meet a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, you know, Brotherhood's all right, but I like the first series a lot better. And I'm like, cool, did you read the comic? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, okay, I see how it is. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No. Yeah, like, definitely the animation of the first series is better, which I think maybe makes it harder for some people to get into Brotherhood. But like plot wise and what they did with Homunculus and like all of like the core themes that Arakawa was going for that got twisted by making Sloth their mother and like all, I'm just like, no. Blasphemy.
It's very weird.
Yeah. I'm sure they did their best. And I guess that's another, I know it kind of leads into another question you have planned, but like that's part of what I really admired about Arakawa's approach, where they were like, I know my ending, and I don't want you to stall and make it less satisfying like Naruto or, you know, that kind of thing, but I also don't want you to give it away because I want to be able to tell it. So yeah, that's just I will take that. I'll take that the first anime had to figure out something to do.
Yeah. I was going to say about going back to the comic, like what about the comic did you really captivated you in particular?
Well, I mean, the art, of course, is amazing. And just the writing on like characters, specifically the female characters, is just so well done. But the biggest thing that is like the thing that I've tried to apply even in my own series, is the way that she would lay clues in plain sight for you to not get until the reveal happened. But like it's always there. So like for example, so spoilers, sorry guys. We're coming into
Spoilers for this
territory.
20-year-old comic.
Yeah. Oh, don't.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, it's all good. So Salim is Pride, right?
Yes.
When that reveal happens, it's so shocking. But then when you go back and read every interaction with Pride, it's the clues are always there. Like the way that he's paneled, the way that his shadow behaves, like all of those things are there the whole time. You just don't notice them because you're not looking for them. And like it's just such a really ingenious way to like really make the reader feel like how the characters feel when that reveal happens, right? Like that, like how in the world, but then it was there. It isn't one of those reveals that's like it feels convenient for plot reasons. Like it's so well laid. And yeah, it's like one of my biggest inspirations. Like that reveal, I remember I just like blew my mind. I was amazed.
Heck yeah. Yeah, it's funny with longer series like FMA and like other shonen stuff. You see a lot of artists, I feel, have a tendency to kind of seed possible threads in and then kind of later wait to pick them up in and just like kind of depending on which one is the most interesting or which one's the most convenient for the plot. But I really do agree that like with Arakawa, it really feels like the whole thing is one really intricately crafted puzzle box that like she figured out before the series even began. Like everything feels really deliberate with it.
Yeah, that's what I really love about it. And I've read interviews where she mentioned like she knew from the beginning, she knew her ending, she knew everything that was going to happen. And originally it was plotted for 24 volumes, but then it became 26 volumes. So like that shows there's like room for bloat, room for like, changes as you go. But like it was still very close to exactly how she had plotted. Like she had everything planned and then it was just a matter of executing it, right? And it shows. It's exceptional for it and I just love it so much.
Yeah. How would you say that FMA changed the way you think about and or make your own work?
Well, not to spoil Dominion at all, but I am already doing the same thing. And it's fun. I can't say much, but people are already being like fooled and I'm like, yes. So yeah, that idea of like, so I've written the entire series, I've plotted every single chapter. So I know exactly what's happening in every single chapter. What clues I'm leaving, things like that. That isn't to say that I don't allow a bit of spontaneity in my process where like sometimes I'll just be doing stuff and a scene will come to me. And I like to do this thing. There was this shoujo manga, like a really old school shoujo manga guide that my friend lent me. And it had this writing advice of like, even if you don't have an ending planned out, which I do, but like I'll explain how it applies. They're like, you need to know your theme. You need to know what you're saying, and so write it out, clearly define what your theme is, and then kind of put that up on the wall. And when you get an idea, hold it up to that theme and be like, is this, supporting that? Is this, supporting that idea or is it detracting from it? And so, yeah, so I've done that with the series as well. So where if I get like a really vivid idea, I'll do that. I'll kind of be like, all right, well, here's the scene that I originally wrote. So that's one thing. And then, okay, my rising action should only take so long or that kind of thing. But also, is this scene serving that theme better or is it not? And then I can make that kind of story decision as I go. But that being said, I haven't made all that many radical changes to the script. I did make a few, like especially for the print edition versus if you've read the original online edition. There's some rewrites in chapter 3 where it was that thing of like, what is serving my theme better? What do I really need to tell the audience right now? Yeah, and then making a change based off of that.
Yeah. The luxury of webcomics.
Yeah, I know, right? You can just change it.
They're a living document. They're fun.
Yeah. I'm currently trying to figure out if I want to, like, because I've got the print edition, right? So
Uh,
like, how am I going to share all the new chapters, and like when do I share them? Do I start like a new page that has like the official edition, or like, do I go back and just update all the stuff? That's
mhm.
the current memo problem. So
Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, so would you say on the whole, would you recommend reading FMA to other readers? If so, how? And if not, why?
I don't think I could ever possibly say that I wouldn't recommend reading it. It should be required reading.
Yeah. This is kind of a given.
Um,
I have this question in my list because in case some people were like, well, I don't know if this series holds up today, but like, come on. Of course the series holds up today.
Exactly. I mean, I could also see it because, like, there's Alan Moore, right, who says, like, sometimes you find a series and you're just like, oh man, I can write better than that. It can
Yeah.
work as an inspiration in that way. But no, there's no world in which I am better than Arakawa Sensei. It's amazing. Absolutely read it. And I would say, above and all else, read the manga version because it really is like her vision. And like the whole reason there's two animes is because she was like, no, I have a story and I know it and I want to tell it. And I just admire the hell out of that.
Yeah. Heck yeah. That is a can recommend from Memo
Yes,
here.
absolutely.
Well, hey, thank you very much for talking about FMA with us and about your comic and your process. It's been really fun talking to you. I wanted to ask, where can folks find you online?
So my most active social is Instagram. So you can find me at Memo Comics, and it's spelled MEMOH, full stop. And then also my website, which is memocomics.com, but there's no middle full stop, so it's just MEMOHCOMICS.com. But yeah, it is fun because like when you use the full stop in Instagram and then you're like, oh, I can't use it anywhere else. Oh well. But yeah, there's an edgy reason that I put that full stop there, because I'm an interior goth kid.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I guess giving a bit of the deep lore, Memo comes from Memento Mori, and then like the
Ooh.
full stop is like end. So that's where I got my pseudonym, yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. That's so sick. Heck
Because I'm an
yeah.
edgelord, yeah.
No, that's that's just the right amount of edge. Heck yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
But
very
yeah.
much for being on the show, Memo. It's been really cool talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. You've been listening to Light Bulbs, part of the Co-op Comics Mixtape.
The Cartoonist Co-op Comics Quiz is back with another question to test your knowledge. Jack Kirby is legendary for his contributions to the comic medium, particularly in the superhero genre. When Jack Kirby entered the fledgling comic book industry in 1940, he found his first success working with which Superman?
The Pull List is a segment where we do one of the main things the co-op was created for, to hype each other's comics. Each segment has a co-op member putting the spotlight on another co-op member's comics, one that might not be getting the attention they deserve. We'll start with my own selection, Phantom Marine by Claire Niebergall. PhantomMarine.com, that's PH.
It's time for the We're back with the
The Pull List is a segment where we do one of the main things the co-op was created for, to hype each other's comics. Each segment has a co-op member putting the spotlight on another co-op member's comics, one that might not be getting the attention they deserve. We'll start with my own selection, Phantomarine by Claire Niebergall. Phantomarine.com, that's PHANTOMARINE.com. The Candlelight Sea swarms with the dead. Ships travel from island to island, warily, dogged by the spirits of anyone who's ever drowned in these waters, haunting their wake. Anyone who falls into the water risks being bitten by the ghosts, which, if you survive, results in a chronic condition that bleaches the skin and slowly drains away your soul, transforming you into a monster. And there are even worse things out on the water. Princess Phaedra Philemon, Princess Admiral of the Seafort, and her companions are commanding a naval armada on their way back from a battle when they're attacked and killed by supernatural assassins. She's drawn down into the realm of Cheth, the god of death, an entity who can wear the souls of anyone who's ever drowned at sea. Cheth offers her a challenge, and amazingly, Phaedra wins, though with a catch. She and her friends are able to return to the surface as ghosts, given a chance to find a mystic artifact that can restore them to life. But to find it, they'll need to employ the help of a living human, and humans fear ghosts above all things. Pavel Morena is a preteen kid being raised at the Aquafire, a healing place for the sea-bitten. For Pavel was bitten by ghosts 7 years ago. No one's been known to stay human that long after a ghost bite, but Pavel's mother is a brilliant scientist who's discovered a possible treatment for the condition. When this fact is discovered by a priestess who's possessed by an evil god, Pavel and his mother are attacked, forcing him to flee alone. His only hope is a mysterious lantern gifted him before he left, a lantern that can repel the sea ghosts, a lantern powered by the mystic substance known as Phantomarine. As of this July, Phantomarine, the webcomic, will have been updating for 10 years with almost 400 pages online. It's an impressive achievement for a full-page, full-color, lavishly illustrated comic. Niebergall is an animator, and it shows in the expressive, sleek, somewhat Disney-ish style and use of cinematic compositions. Being a comic featuring a lot of ghosts, Niebergall uses specific color palettes to differentiate them, with the lively main spirits being a frosty blue-white, Cheth's malevolent possessed beings in red and purple, and the soft greens and browns of the lands of the living. It's a comic that really jumps off the page at you. What I find impressive about this comic is something that fantasy sometimes struggles with, creating a unique world with its own rules and history that is communicated clearly and effectively to the reader, but which also has a strong impact on the story and the characterization. Niebergall knows just how to allude to something to make it mysterious and tantalizing without leaving you confused, and how to drop the details that make this world seem rich and living in a way that seems natural instead of expository. More importantly, the world building animates the story. You're immediately drawn into Phaedra's plight as she engages in a desperate battle of wits to keep herself, almost, alive. The rules of the magic that binds her and the conditions of her eventual quest are compelling because we care about her and we want to see what happens next. You don't need to sit down with a map or a glossary to understand the world of the Candlelight Sea. Understanding flows naturally from a compelling narrative. One of the most interesting aspects of the comic is its exploration of, not religion exactly, but what I might call moral metaphysics. This is a world of gods and powerful magical entities who see mankind as tools to their own ends, and their ends are often malicious. They can be propitiated or bargained with. You can prove useful to them. If you're really smart and brave, you might be able to win their challenges and gain something, assuming they don't find some hidden catch in the rules to stab you in the back. But they're not doing what they do out of a sense of compassion for humanity, or even a sense of cosmic justice, unless it's purely justice for themselves. We meet Cheth, the death god, as a Luciferian figure who entraps Phaedra and sends her on her quest for his own purposes, and yet there's almost immediately signs that Cheth might be a more sympathetic figure than he appears. Likewise, Chelene, the goddess beloved of Pavel's people, seems to have an outright nasty side to her. The gods of this world are human, like the gods of various classical myths, which means they can be cruel, petty, or short-sighted, but it also means they might be hiding hidden pain or possibly unrequited longing. Phantom Marine hits what is for me an almost perfect balance of fun, lighthearted adventure, and imaginative depth for a fantasy series. It's online at phantommarine.com and will presumably continue to update as long as Niebergall remains above the horizon line.
We're back with the answer to the latest Cartoonist Co-op Comics quiz. Which Superman co-creator did Jack Kirby find his first comic book success with? Joe Simon. Simon was an editor at Fox Feature Syndicate, where Kirby was employed drawing a variety of newspaper strips and comic books. They moonlit as freelancers on a project called Blue.
What story turned on the lights in your head? Since its very inception, the medium of comics has been building on what came before. The classics and cult faves of yesterday inspired the cartoonists of today, whose comics will in turn inspire another wave of creators tomorrow. By exploring how we got here, we can better understand where we are and figure out where we're going next. You're listening to Lightbulbs, part of the Comics Co-op Mixtape. I'm your host, Iris J.
We've got one more question in this edition of the Cartoonist Co-op Comics Quiz. Which early 20th century indie comic strip, sometimes cited as the forerunner to the underground Comics with an X scene, and its main character of the same name, was the subject of a song by noted labor organizer and folk singer Joe?
Time to check in once again with the pull list. The next selection is The Apex Society by Philip Rice at apexsociety.thecomicseries.com. The 20th century, a time of adventure, mystery, and wonders unleashed upon the world. Heroes walk the globe. Rex Roman, man of marble, descendant of a lost colony of Romans in Antarctica. Moonchild, mistress of mysticism. Adam Frankenstein, the famous monster born of mad science. The mysterious Viper, the Pharaoh, and many others, spanning decades and even centuries as part of the superhuman squad known as the Apex Society. As you can probably tell, the Apex Society is an old-school pulp adventure comic, though the timeline shifts from the dawn of time to the present. Most of the story is focused on the team of adventurers I mentioned at the beginning, though we'll occasionally break to meet other members from different eras, rivals, rogue factions, and dozens of others. The obvious inspiration for all this, of course, is Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill's The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, though most of Rice's characters are original, with only the occasional appearance by a public domain character. As with that series, and also something like Kurt Busiek and Brent Eric Anderson's Astro City, Apex is most interested in taking a postmodern look at the sweep of pop culture, mostly American in this case, throughout the last 100 years. It uses adventure and genre heroes as a lens to reflect society's neuroses of any given time back on itself, from the awkward dynamics of race in America over the decades, to the pure commodification and exploitation inherent in the superhero genre, to a Nazi invasion in the present. It's also a showcase for Rice's art. He's been working on it for years, and like a lot of comic creators, he used it as a daily practice to improve his art, and boy, has he. You can watch a sophisticated artistic development from the early pages to the later ones, as Rice's simple, Mike Mignola-inspired heavy shadowed style morphs into insanely detailed character designs and Easter egg-filled crowds. In particular, his lush and immersive coloring is a thing to behold in the later strips. Rice also works hard to innovate in both his storytelling and his art. He doesn't just pastiche comics characters, he also pastiches styles of comics from throughout the medium's history, from a Prince Valiant-style caption-heavy storyline to one that completely switches art styles to resemble an animated cartoon. He also likes to nod to Will Eisner in his title pages. But it's not just pastiche. The point is that Rice is using every tool in the toolbox to try and make every story different. All of this, of course, is in service of a rip-roaring adventure tale. While historians of adventure comics and genre stories might be chuckling appreciatively to themselves throughout, you don't have to appreciate the dense references and clever riffs on existing genre stories to enjoy the straightforward swashbuckling and imaginative world-building. In the interest of full disclosure, Philip is a friend of mine, and I've even written and drawn a fill-in story for the Apex Society. But that's the thing about this comic. It's the kind of playground that anyone would want to play around in, and invites you to do so. Go to apexsociety.thecomicseries.com and book your ticket to adventure!
We're back with the answer to the last question in this edition of the Cartoonist Co-op Comics Quiz. Which early 20th century comic strip was the subject of a song by noted labor organizer and folk singer Joe Hill? Mr. Block by Ernest Reeby. Debuting in 1912, Mr. Block appeared in left-wing publications sympathizing with the common worker, and Reeby himself was a member of the International Workers of the
Made a lot of enemies with a move like that.
Wait, the captain knew? I didn't mention the blackguard I saw, which means she must have known they were running that place before last night. Well, that's not the most surprising. She is the de facto head of the guard. But how many others know it was a blackguard operation? Surely John wouldn't have.
I'd advise you to be cooperative. Digging in your heels is a quick way to the gallows.
And why aren't I being sent there?
Because, technically, you've helped me out. The guards haven't been able to do anything about the death matches for years, nor the trafficking at fronts. And here, you went and burned the place down in a night. Murdered the showrunner, dented their numbers by releasing a mob of trained gladiators with a chip on their shoulder.
Glad to be of assistance. So, are we even?
Just because you've helped me doesn't mean I won't hold it against you. The key to your continued survival is whether I think your cooperation can be more valuable than a public execution. In the last few weeks, there's been a concerning string of murders. However, my forces are occupied with a situation at the city wall. So I want you to find out who's behind them and why.
And do you trust me with a mission like that?
Incredibly, the only deaths last night were known blackguards. No civilian casualties, property damage to the surrounding area was also minimal, besides smoke damage. Fire is not naturally so discerning. It means there was premeditation, fact-finding, extensive research. Investigative skills like that are useful.
Yet, among the guard in woefully short supply.
Regardless, I have you pinned. Due to the border incident, the bridges out of the city are closed. The docks are swarming with blackguards searching every deck and bilge, trying to find you and the missing fighters. So, you either go to the gallows now, try to escape, and meet a worse fate, or cooperate. Still, I'm not stupid enough to leave you on your own. You will have a guard attached to you for your investigation. Say hello, Officer Oakenheart.
My first real mission? Yes! Hello, miss. Sorry. May I ask your name?
Call me Pasha.
Now that we're all friends, I suggest you get started.
Right away, ma'am.
You have a week to get me results. I don't need to say or else, do I?
Only if you want to sound like an ass. I'll need to have my hands free. The blackguards are bound to have spotted him investigating the fire last night. Even being seen with you right now is bad. Drag me around in cuffs? You might as well paint a target on my back.
Just one more condition. No more memory magic. If Officer Oakenheart forgets anything important again, our deal is off.
Memory magic? I don't... Deal.
Excellent. Officer Oakenheart, here's the casebook. I trust you have this handled?
Yes, ma'am. We won't let you down, Captain.
And this has been the May 2025 edition of the Comics Mixtape. I'm your host, Yuki, and your co-hosts have been Adam, Kelsey, Jeff, and Iris. We'd like to give an extra thank you to our special guest this week, Memo, creator of the comic Dominion. The Co-op Comics Mixtape is the official podcast of the Cartoonist Cooperative. The Co-op is a multinational, member-driven group of comics and cartoonists, now over 1,000 strong, working together to build community among comic creators and to improve and protect the labor rights of comic industry workers worldwide. You can learn more about that at our website, cartoonist.coop. That is cartoonist.coop. And if you're a creator yourself, consider joining. It's free, and we provide a wide variety of things, such as creator development resources, creative feedback and assistance, promotional campaigns for members, exclusive discounted benefits, and a massive community, among others. But even if you're just a fan of comics, you can support us in a bunch of different ways, like subscribing to our newsletter at cartoonist.coop/newsletter.html, where we're always promoting the latest cool works by our members, as well as showcasing merch, initiative, Kickstarters, and all other kinds of things to explore. You can also subscribe to the Comics Co-op Mixtape podcast by following our YouTube channel at Cartoonist Co-op. We're working to get an RSS feed set up for it as well, so stay tuned. From all of us to all of you, thanks for listening and keep making comics.